tell you what bugs me about human endeavour. I've never been the human in question. Have you? Mankind went to the moon. I don't even know where Grimsby is. Forget progress by proxy. Land on your own moon. It's no longer about what they can achieve out there in your behalf, but what we can experience up here in our own time. It's called mental wealth.
There's a certain tension that hangs when watching a commercial. An undefinable anxiety in the knowledge that someone is attempting to sell me something. Commercials are a thing that most of us see every day, whether we like it or not. But if you're able to forget the horrors of late-stage capitalism, just for a second, I think there's actually a lot of beauty to be found within them. If you're at all like me, then it's likely that you too find some guilty pleasure when watching a good one. So what I want to talk about in this video is really whether we're allowed to enjoy them, and whether it's okay to say that they're art. Commercials are weird. At the basic level, they're tiny films designed to manipulate as many people as possible into doing something. They're a form of filmmaking that everyone sees, but no one wants to watch. However, if you momentarily ignore their commercial intent, I think that when the right creative is tasked to make one of these things, something genuinely interesting can happen. Take Spike Jonze, for example. In 2018, he directed Welcome Home, a commercial for Apple's HomePod. As a director, Spike brings FKA Twigs' physicality to the centre, rather than the product, which allows us to forget that we're even being sold something. To me, it's interesting to watch what happens when an auteur is constrained by the limitations of an advertising brief. In this case, we find that Spike's existing style actually works perfectly within the context of an advert. I mean, we're all aware of how good he is at directing dance-heavy videos, so it's no surprise really that when he does the same with an ad, it just feels right. However, despite it feeling like Spike's other work, I think it's much easier to enjoy one of his music videos. They just don't feel manipulative in the same way. Your guard doesn't go up when watching them. But when you think about it, how are music videos any different? They're short explorations in filmmaking, with a strict time limit, created with the ultimate goal of selling something. Is that it though? Is it just context? Is a music video really the only way we're able to call a commercial art? In 2021, for their winter collection, Burberry commissioned 3 commercials from Riff Raff Films. Each one was directed by the directing collective Megaforce. This one is called Open Spaces. For me, this is the best kind of advert, one where the product itself is really incidental. We're whisked away by the jaw-dropping visuals, and aren't even told what's being advertised until the very end. The clothes in the video work more as texture than as an overall focus. I think that it works not because the product disappears within the advert, but because it's coherent with the world that the advert has created. We aren't confronted with celebrity endorsement or a call to action, and so aren't left reminded of the transactional nature of an advert. In fact, there's no direct address to the camera whatsoever, leaving us to decide for ourselves what to feel. There's also this sense of continuation between the clothes and the video. Much like how a music video can be an extension of an artist's brand, and in some cases, almost feel like a completion of the music, Burberry used this opportunity to extend their own work into something bigger than just the clothes themselves. It feels like additional material that's part of the collection. It's clear that Open Spaces exists in a similar space to Spike Jonze's Apple commercials, or even the bouncing balls in this 2009 advert for Sony Bravia TVs. On the surface, it's easy to appreciate them as art and enjoy them because they are aesthetically beautiful. But it's not that simple. I think there's also a case to be made for commercials that are deliberately unappealing. After all, art isn't always supposed to elicit positive emotions. Sometimes, good filmmaking can leave you confused or even upset. So how would that look within the restraints of a commercial? Let's talk about Chris Cunningham. In 1999, Chris Cunningham teamed up with PlayStation to create Mental Wealth. It's a girl with an augmented face, talking directly to the camera. That's it. An uncanny widening of the eyes and forehead, combined with language about what it means to be a human, disrupts our preconceived notions about what makes a normal advert testimonial. Where Spike Jonze plays with physical movement in a way that lets you lose yourself within an ad, Chris Cunningham seems to act confrontationally. In Mental Wealth, it feels like Chris is playing with the discomfort of advertising as an artistic practice. It's almost like he's aware of how torturous adverts can be, and so is deliberately daring you to sit in your own discomfort and offering you the final logo as a sort of punchline. As a side note, a lot of PlayStation ads from this time were insane. I highly recommend you watch this video by Sourdough if you want to learn more. To me, Mental Wealth is the clearest example of when a commercial completely fails to act like itself. The line between art and advert seems so vague here that I would almost say that it doesn't exist at all. What I've found from researching commercials in this way is really that people aren't sure where to put them. Marxist theory would suggest that by enjoying a commercial, you risk participating in ideological manipulation. Philosophers like Theodor Adorno believe that art is based on artistic autonomy, the freedom for art to exist for its own sake, rather than serving another purpose, like selling something. But then alternatively, if you look at commercials through a postmodern lens, you start asking questions about context. Much like how an everyday object can become art when it's placed in a gallery, the meaning of something can shift depending on how we frame it. So what happens when we do the same with an actual commercial? When we stop treating them purely as marketing and start analysing them as filmmaking, are we ourselves turning them into art? What I want to be clear about is that this video isn't intended to demonstrate why commercials are secretly all good, because it's obvious that that's not the case. For every Burberry Open Spaces or Wes Anderson Mont Blanc, there are 1,000 corporate brainwashy or simply dangerous adverts out there that, for the record, I do not think have any real artistic merit. I'm also not celebrating using art as a tool to trick people into spending money. What I've hoped to do is highlight some of the rare occasions where good art has come from an unlikely place. Personally, I unironically really enjoy these 3 adverts. And others, like those by Wes Anderson, Michel Gondry, or Jonathan Glazer. If I were to answer my questions from the beginning, I would say that adverts can absolutely be a legitimate form of expression. Film has always existed within systems, whether that's studios, galleries, or record labels. And advertising is just another one of those constraints. And no, I don't think anyone should feel guilty for sometimes enjoying them. To me, it isn't always ethically compromising to enjoy something for its aesthetic value. Surely we can acknowledge manipulation while still recognising artistic craft. But I will say that it's hard to ignore that the ones I've shared are simply stunning exceptions to an otherwise ugly rule. Really, in the end, maybe most commercials just exist as a weird form of unwanted art. Accidental cinema that sits unhappily in art's uncanny valley. And like any other kind of cinema, it's really up to us to decide which ones are worth watching.